Marcus Aurelius didn't wake up to comfort. He woke up to duty, to cold mornings, to political unrest, to war, to disease, to betrayal, and yet he never ran from the day. He faced it, head-on, with the resolve of a man who had trained his mind to be stronger than his circumstances. He wasn't superhuman, he was disciplined, and that discipline began every single morning. Now ask yourself this: how do you begin your day? Do you reach for your phone, scroll through distractions, drown in noise before you've even taken a breath? Most of us do, and most of us carry that chaos into everything we do, into our decisions, our emotions, our goals. But what if you could start your day the way a Stoic would? What if the first hour of your morning could anchor you in strength, in clarity, in control? This isn't just an aesthetic idea. This is real, ancient, tested wisdom. And in this video from Stoicism, you're going to discover the 10 things you should do every morning. A routine built on Stoic principles that will reshape the way you show up in the world. These are not motivational quotes or fluffy affirmations. These are actionable habits drawn from the writings of Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, men who faced the worst of life and still stood tall. Each of these 10 points has been chosen for one reason: because it works. They are simple, direct, and brutally effective. You'll learn how to clear your mind before the world fills it with noise. You'll learn how to confront discomfort first, before it controls you. You'll train your thoughts, prepare your actions, and most importantly, remind yourself every day of what truly matters. That is the Stoic way, not to hope for a good day, but to create one by how you meet it. This isn't about copying the ancient world. It's about extracting the essence of Stoic practice and translating it into a morning ritual that fits your life today. And as we go through each habit, you'll realize this: the most powerful changes don't come from dramatic events. They come from quiet, repeated actions. Actions that begin the moment you open your eyes. But listen carefully, the final point we'll share, habit number 10, is the most powerful of all. It's the practice Marcus Aurelius used before making decisions that shaped history. If you take only one thing from this video, let it be that. Because once you understand it, your mornings and your mind will never be the same. So before we begin, I want you to do something simple but serious. Go to the comments and write, "I command my mornings." That's it, a short phrase. But those 4 words are a declaration, a mindset, a challenge. To yourself, from yourself. Say it, write it, live it. Because this isn't just about having a morning routine. It's about owning your day before the day owns you. Let's begin. Number 10. Begin with brutal honesty. Every Stoic morning must begin by confronting the truth, no matter how uncomfortable. As Epictetus once wrote, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." The day does not care about your excuses. The world will not wait for your confidence to arrive. So the first act of the Stoic each morning is to strip away illusion. No masks, no lies, no emotional cushioning, just you and the truth. In ancient times, Epictetus, once a slave, rose before dawn not to chase comfort, but to sit in silence and ask himself hard questions. Am I acting with reason? Am I preparing for hardship? Am I becoming better or simply busy? Today, this same act might look like standing in front of the mirror before the phone, before the news, before any external distraction. Look into your own eyes and ask, am I living or just existing? Did I wake up with purpose or by accident? This is not a motivational ritual, it is a mental cleansing. It's the opposite of the fake confidence preached by modern influencers. Stoicism demands inner alignment. If your actions and your values are not in harmony, the day will expose you. And that's exactly what a Stoic seeks. Exposure, not to the world, but to themselves. Imagine a general reviewing his troops before battle. He doesn't pretend they're ready. He inspects their weaknesses. He needs to know where the cracks are. You are that general, and your mind is your army. If you skip this inspection, you risk walking into life unprepared. Brutal honesty is not self-hatred. It's self-respect, because only those who respect themselves are willing to face themselves. Think of a surgeon who finds a tumor early. Painful, yes, but life-saving. That's what a Stoic does with the flaws in their thinking. They expose them early, in the quiet, in the dark, before they spread. In modern terms, this could look like admitting to yourself that you are procrastinating, that you are avoiding discomfort, that you are prioritizing ease over excellence. Maybe it's the relationship you're in, the job you're clinging to, the habits you're excusing. No matter how small the crack, if you don't name it, you'll trip over it later. Today, this honesty might apply when you feel the pressure to perform perfectly at work. A Stoic knows perfection is an illusion. Effort and alignment, that is what matters. Not pretending to be flawless, but choosing not to hide. So here's your phrase: face the truth before the world does it for you. And yet this is only the beginning, because while this habit clears your vision, the next one sharpens your response. What Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations reveals a deeper challenge, a daily practice that not only tests your resolve, but redefines your relationship with pain. If you thought facing truth was hard, wait until you see what comes next. Number 9. Seek discomfort before it finds you. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." These are not poetic words, they are instructions for life. A Stoic does not avoid difficulty, he walks toward it. Each morning, before the world imposes its chaos, the Stoic chooses a challenge. Not because he enjoys pain, but because he knows that strength must be summoned, not stumbled upon. In the Roman camps, soldiers were trained under harsh conditions long before battle began. Cold water, heavy armor, early marches. Why? Because those who suffer voluntarily suffer less when it matters. In our time, seeking discomfort might mean starting the day with cold water on your face, or even a cold shower. Not to be trendy, but to practice mastery over impulse. It might mean reading a dense page of philosophy instead of scrolling. Sitting still in silence instead of distracting yourself with noise. Making your bed with intention instead of rushing out the door. These are small acts, but they have massive meaning. You are telling your brain, I am in control. I do not run from resistance. I train with it. Imagine a boxer who only trains when he feels like it. He enters the ring soft, unprepared, delusional. Now imagine a Stoic, one who every morning tests himself in small ways so that when life throws a punch, he doesn't flinch. The discomfort you choose will never hit as hard as the one you avoid. Modern life has made comfort a god. Heated seats, instant food, emotional softness. But what comfort builds in ease, it erodes in character. The Stoic understands this and reverses the trend. You don't have to climb a mountain before sunrise, but you do have to challenge yourself before the world does. If your first thought in the morning is, what's the easiest way? You're already losing. Ask instead, what's the right thing, even if it's hard? That's Stoicism. It's brushing your teeth while holding your posture straight. It's doing 5 minutes of stretching when your body wants to scroll. It's writing down what you're grateful for, even when your mind feels empty. These are not tasks, they're resistance training for your soul. Today, this lesson applies when you're tempted to avoid a conversation you need to have, when you choose to delay something meaningful because it's uncomfortable, when you lie to yourself that rest is deserved before effort is earned. A Stoic does not wait for the world to discipline him. He disciplines himself. Discomfort is not the enemy, it's the gym of the will. And if you're not training, you're weakening. So here's your phrase: Chase the hard thing before it chases you. But prepare yourself, because what comes next is even more subtle, more challenging. If you think choosing discomfort is tough, the next lesson will ask you to turn your entire perspective upside down. Because the obstacle is not just something to overcome, it's something to thank. And the way to do that, that's where Stoic practice deepens. Number 8, turn obstacles into allies. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, wrote one of the most radical lines in all of Stoic thought: "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." These are not poetic metaphors. This was his reality, writing those words in his tent during wars and plagues while leading a crumbling empire. What he taught himself each morning was this: nothing that happens to me is purely an obstacle. Everything is material for growth, even pain, even betrayal, even failure. Imagine waking up and instead of dreading your problems, you trained yourself to thank them. That's what a Stoic does. Not with naive optimism, but with disciplined perception. You spill your coffee, training. You get bad news, training. Your plans fall apart, training. Every difficulty becomes a rep for the mind. That doesn't mean you enjoy the problem. It means you convert it into power. The modern mind says, "Why me?" The Stoic mind says, "What can I build from this?" Picture a sculptor looking at a cracked piece of marble. Most would throw it away, but the Stoic carves beauty from the damage. That's your job each morning, to identify the emotional weight you're resisting and then repurpose it. That tight deadline, a chance to test focus. That missed opportunity, a lesson in humility. That argument, a mirror for your ego. Nothing is wasted in the Stoic routine, not even suffering. Today, this practice applies when something minor throws off your schedule or when someone criticizes you unfairly. Instead of reacting with anger or defeat, you pause, you translate, you ask, "What is this teaching me?" That one habit repeated each morning reshapes your entire nervous system. So here's your phrase: what blocks me builds me. But be warned, the next point strikes deeper. Because even if you accept obstacles, there's still one enemy hiding in your thoughts, a subtle poison, a habit that destroys clarity and creates unnecessary suffering. And unless you remove it each morning, no Stoic practice will hold. The next lesson? It's not about what you do, it's about what you let go. Number 7, detach from what you don't control. Epictetus, once a slave turned philosopher, delivered one of the most liberating truths in his Enchiridion. Some things are up to us, and some things are not. That line, repeated every morning by serious Stoics, is a shield against anxiety. The moment you accept that most things lie beyond your command, your inattention begins to dissolve. And what's left? Focus, clarity, strength. Epictetus taught his students to begin each day with this distinction: what can I influence? What must I release? Imagine waking up and immediately checking your messages, your social media, your bank account. All of it is noise, outcomes you can't fully dictate. That mental habit creates a loop of helplessness. You react, you fear, you spiral. A Stoic cuts that cycle before it begins. They remind themselves the weather, the market, the news, the behavior of others. None of it belongs to me. But my choices, my attitude, my effort, those are mine, always. Picture a man gripping a rope that's dragging him behind a horse. That's what we do when we cling to what's beyond us. We burn our hands, we lose control, and still, we won't let go. The Stoic, on the other hand, learns to release the rope, not out of weakness, but wisdom. They understand that inner peace comes from mastering the response, not the result. Today, this detachment might apply when someone criticizes you, when plans get cancelled, when your work isn't recognized. The non-Stoic reacts with frustration. The Stoic? They return to the question, Is this within my control? If the answer is no, they don't waste energy. That's not indifference, it's precision. So, here's your phrase. Let go or be dragged. But don't think detachment means passivity. In fact, what comes next proves the opposite. Because once you stop wasting energy on the uncontrollable, you gain power to direct your will, intentionally, sharply, decisively. And the next morning habit will teach you exactly how to channel that inner fire into action. Number 6, move with intention, not impulse. Séneca, elocuente y despiadadamente lúcido, escribió, "If one does not know to which port one is sailing, no wind is favorable." A Stoic morning is not random, it is aimed. Before the world tempts you to rush, to react, to scatter your energy in 1,000 directions, you must reclaim your focus. Because without direction, even effort becomes wasted motion. The Stoic doesn't just move, he moves with reason. That's what separates discipline from mere activity. In ancient Rome, senators and generals were expected to rise early, not just to act, but to think. They would reflect, strategize, and speak aloud their intentions for the day, not to impress others, but to align themselves internally. Imagine Marcus Aurelius walking through the Palatine halls at dawn, repeating to himself what kind of man he aimed to be that day. He knew the chaos that awaited him, and still he prepared his mind like a warrior prepares his blade. Today, most people wake up and are instantly hijacked by notifications, schedules, or cravings. They start reacting before they've even thought. But a Stoic pauses, even for a minute. They ask, what matters today? What will I do deliberately? This doesn't require a journal or a ritual. It requires presence. It's as simple as saying, today I will act with calm. I will speak with truth. I will not waste my time. Picture an archer shooting arrows with a blindfold. That's how most live, busy but misaligned. Now picture a Stoic drawing the bow slowly, with full attention, releasing only when the aim is clear. That's intentional living. Even if the shot misses, the act was rooted in clarity. This lesson applies when you're tempted to jump from task to task without purpose, when you say yes without thinking, when you feel pulled by urgency rather than led by principle. The Stoic knows that motion isn't progress unless it serves a higher aim. Every movement must serve the soul. So here's your phrase: don't move unless it moves you forward. But as you'll see next, even right action is incomplete without one deeper practice, one that defines whether your energy will inspire or corrode, because it's not just what you do, it's how you carry yourself while doing it. Number 5, carry yourself with quiet dignity. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each morning, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one. That sentence, stripped of pretense, is a challenge to live in alignment. The Stoic doesn't seek praise. He doesn't broadcast his values. He embodies them. And each morning as the day begins, his posture, his tone, and even his silence are deliberate choices. Dignity is not vanity. It's composure. It's the way you walk into a room without needing to be noticed. In ancient Rome, philosophers were mocked for wearing simple clothes, walking alone, and avoiding political games. But those who practiced real Stoicism didn't care. Their power wasn't external. It came from self-respect, from walking into noise and choosing not to be part of it. That same strength exists today, not in loud opinions, but in quiet presence. Imagine standing in a crowded metro, someone bumps you, someone else complains. A Stoic doesn't react with hostility. He remains grounded, not because he's passive, but because he chooses not to be ruled. Dignity is the shield you wear in public. It protects your values without needing to explain them. It says, I know who I am, even when the world tries to pull you into chaos. In daily life, this might mean choosing calm when someone cuts you off in traffic. It might mean listening without interrupting. It might mean dressing neatly, not for approval, but as a symbol of inner order. These small acts become a form of resistance against the modern culture of noise, rage, and endless opinion. So here's your phrase: speak less, stand taller. And yet, this quiet strength must be protected, because the world is built to provoke reaction, to pull you off center. That's why the next Stoic habit is so crucial. It's not about action or even attitude, it's about emotional clarity. Because if your feelings lead your day, your wisdom won't. Number 4, observe your emotions before they lead you. Seneca once wrote with brutal clarity, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." The mind, when left unguarded, distorts, dramatizes, and deceives. That's why every Stoic morning includes one essential act: emotional observation. Not to suppress what you feel, but to understand it before it takes control. Because the person who does not examine their emotions will eventually be ruled by them. And emotional slavery doesn't come with chains, it comes with overreactions, poor decisions, and words spoken in weakness. In ancient Rome, where a single emotional outburst could cost a senator his life or a general his army, Stoics trained each day to remain calm under pressure. Marcus Aurelius began his mornings by preparing for emotional disruption. He wrote, "You will meet people today who are selfish, arrogant, deceitful." He wasn't being cynical, he was practicing readiness. By anticipating emotion, he weakened its grip. Today, this act of observation might mean noticing the first negative thought in your mind. It might be the way your chest tightens when you see a message, or the impatience rising when things don't go your way. The Stoic doesn't numb those feelings. He pauses, he witnesses them, because awareness is power. Imagine a glass of muddy water. If you shake it, everything becomes cloudy. But if you let it settle, the water clears and the dirt sinks. That's what emotional observation does to the mind. It clarifies, and in that clarity, right action becomes possible. This habit applies when you wake up with anxiety, when someone offends you, when fear creeps in before a big task. The non-Stoic reacts. The Stoic notices, breathes, and then chooses. Feelings are signals, not commands. So here's your phrase: feel it, don't follow it. But even emotional clarity is not enough. Because once your inner world is calm, you must still decide what to feed your mind. And that choice made each morning determines the quality of your entire day. Number 3, feed your mind before the world does. Epictetus once said, "The soul is dyed by the color of its thoughts." Every Stoic knew that the first ideas you allow into your mind each morning shape the rest of your day. That's why, before the world floods in with distractions, opinions, and noise, a Stoic takes a moment to nourish the mind with wisdom. This isn't about motivation, it's about alignment. Because if you don't choose your thoughts, someone else will. In ancient Rome, Stoics began their mornings not with entertainment, but with reflection. They would read short passages from philosophical works, repeat essential maxims, or even write their own thoughts to clarify their perspective. Seneca wrote letters that weren't meant to impress. They were meant to discipline the mind, to sharpen judgment, to recenter values. In modern life, this could mean reading a few lines from meditations, listening to a quiet voice of reason through a podcast or audiobook, or simply writing down your intentions for the day. The key is this: you must choose your first influence deliberately, because your mind is most vulnerable when it's fresh. What you consume at that moment determines the tone of your entire morning. Imagine waking up and immediately diving into social media, emails, or the news. You hand over your mental space to chaos. But if you begin with stillness and substance, you take command of your thoughts before the world tries to hijack them. Even one sentence, one powerful idea, can be a shield against confusion and fear. Picture your mind as a blank canvas each morning. If you don't paint on it with purpose, it will be painted by accident, by fear, by distraction, by whatever comes first. The Stoic doesn't allow randomness to rule the day. He starts with clarity, and from that clarity comes strength. Today, this habit might look like 5 minutes of reading a Stoic quote and reflecting on its meaning. It might mean memorizing one sentence to carry throughout your day. Small acts, big effect. So here's your phrase: start your mind before the world starts you. But even with the mind nourished, the Stoic must still confront the ultimate reality, one that gives meaning to every breath and sharpens every decision. What comes next is not fear, it's fire. Number 2, remember that you could die today. Marcus Aurelius didn't avoid death in thought, he faced it daily. In Meditations, he wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." That's not pessimism, it's precision. The Stoic doesn't use death to create fear. He uses it to ignite purpose. Because when you remember that life is not guaranteed, every moment becomes sacred. Every word, a choice, every action, a statement. The Roman generals returning from conquest would have a slave behind them whispering, "Memento mori." Remember you must die. It wasn't morbid, it was humbling. It reminded them that power, fame, and comfort were illusions, that only character endures. And when you accept your mortality, you begin to prioritize what actually matters. Today, this can be as simple as a quiet reflection before your feet hit the floor. Ask yourself, if this were my last day, am I proud of how I'm showing up? It could be a note on your mirror, a coin in your pocket, a phrase written in your journal. The reminder doesn't need to be loud, it needs to be real. Imagine someone told you that you only had 24 hours left, not in panic, but in clarity. Would you waste time on arguments? Would you scroll endlessly? Would you delay your goals? Or would you hold eye contact longer, speak more gently, and move with deliberate strength? That's the Stoic goal. Not to obsess over death, but to live more fiercely because of it. This practice applies when you're tempted to procrastinate, when you stew in resentment, when you ignore your inner calling. Death is not waiting to punish you, it's there to wake you up, to remind you that the window is closing, that now is the only guarantee you'll ever have. So here's your phrase, live like it matters, because it does. But even when you've remembered death, there's still one final shift. A decision that transforms all previous habits into meaning. Because once you've seen the end, you're ready to ask, what will I do with this short life? And the final morning habit is the answer. Number 1, begin in service, not self. Marcus Aurelius ruled over one of the most powerful empires in history, yet each morning he reminded himself, what is not good for the hive is not good for the bee. The Stoic does not begin the day asking, what do I want? But rather, whom can I serve? This shift from self-centeredness to contribution is what gives the Stoic life its strength. Because when your purpose is rooted in service, your pain becomes lighter, your decisions become clearer, and your presence becomes more powerful. In ancient times, Stoics believed that every human being is a part of a greater whole. Your actions are not isolated, they ripple into the lives of others. A Stoic understands this, and instead of chasing validation, he seeks to be useful. This doesn't mean becoming a martyr, it means waking up with a sense of duty. It means asking, how can I be of value today? To my family, my team, my community? In modern life, this might look like checking in on someone before checking your phone. Offering help without being asked, holding space for a friend in silence instead of rushing to give advice. It's small, deliberate acts of contribution that root you in reality. And when you move from ego to purpose, life stops being a competition and starts being a calling. Picture a candle lighting another. It loses nothing but gives everything. That's what service is. And each morning, when you choose to begin in service, you're telling the world, I'm not just here to get, I am here to give. That posture over time builds real character. It creates inner peace no achievement can replace. Today, this could mean lifting someone's burden with your words, your presence, or your attention. Even a brief moment of generosity recalibrates your entire mindset, because a life rooted only in self will always feel empty. But a life grounded in service, even in struggle, feels whole. So here's your phrase: wake up to give, not to get. And now you've completed the 10 Stoic morning practices. But knowledge alone means nothing without action. The question is, will you start tomorrow with noise or with purpose? Will you drift through your mornings or command them? You made it. 10 practices, 10 battles won before most people even open their eyes. But this is not the end. This is the beginning. Because the Stoic morning routine is not about checking off a list, it's about building a way of life, one rooted in clarity, discipline, and purpose, one that holds up not just on calm days, but when everything falls apart. And now, with these tools in hand, you have a choice: return to drift or live with deliberate force. At Stoicism, we don't promise a life without pain. We don't pretend the world will become easier. We show you how to become stronger. Because when you embody these principles morning after morning, you don't just wake up earlier. You rise differently, not as a victim of time, but as its master. Not as a servant of emotion, but as its observer. Not as a passive wanderer, but as a purposeful soul who understands this day matters, this moment is real, and it will not come again. You started with brutal honesty, not comfort, not positivity, but truth. You looked in the mirror and asked, where am I lying to myself? Because the day punishes the unaware, but the Stoic exposes their own illusions before life does. That moment of internal confrontation is not weakness. It is the beginning of strength. Then you embraced discomfort. You didn't wait for challenges to arrive. You walked toward them. A cold shower, a disciplined breath, a pause before indulgence. These small acts forge the iron will. You practiced hardship voluntarily so that involuntary pain would not break you later. That is wisdom lived. Next, you turned obstacles into allies. You stopped seeing setbacks as personal attacks. You saw them as teachers, as building material. That cancelled meeting, space to reflect. That failure, a lesson in disguise. You rewired your mind to no longer ask, why is this happening to me? But instead, what can I do with this? Then you drew a line between what's yours and what's not. You let go of the uncontrollable, the opinions, the weather, the traffic, the noise, and with that space reclaimed, you took back your freedom. Because the Stoic doesn't waste energy on what cannot be shaped. He saves it for what can. You began to move with intention. No more mindless motion, no more reacting without aim. You acted only when action was necessary. You chose clarity over busyness, purpose over pressure. Every gesture became a declaration. I know where I'm going. You carried yourself with dignity, quietly, without needing applause. Without performance, your tone, your walk, your silence, each became a mirror of your inner discipline. And even when no one saw it, you did. That's enough. Because respect begins with how you hold yourself. You observed your emotions. You didn't suppress. You didn't explode. You noticed the wave rising, and you chose to surf it or let it pass. That's control, not force. Awareness. You knew feelings are messengers, not masters. And when you listen, you lead. You fed your mind before the world did. Not with fear, not with distraction, but with timeless words, powerful thoughts, essential truths. You programmed your perception before it could be hijacked. A quote, a reflection, a pause, enough to shift your entire lens. Then you remembered the ultimate reality, death, not with dread, but with reverence. You held the truth that life is fragile, fleeting, and finite. And that urgency made you kinder, bolder, more present. You stopped postponing meaning, you began living it, and finally you stepped into your day in service, not with entitlement, not with ego, but with a quiet vow, let me be of use. You saw that the strongest person is not the one who gets the most, but the one who gives, even in silence. That is real power and real peace. Now take a breath. Think about the person you were before you began this path. The rushed mornings, the anxious thoughts, the emotional spirals, the wasted energy, and now see who stands in that place. Focused, prepared, grounded. You didn't become someone else. You remembered who you were meant to be. This is what Stoicism is about. Not escaping life, but engaging with it fully, courageously, intelligently. These 10 practices, they are not for show. They are armor, and you will need them, because life is not predictable. The people around you may not change. The world may grow louder, but if you keep this morning ritual alive, you will become unshakable. It's not perfection we aim for, it's progress. If tomorrow you forget a step, start again. If you fall back into old patterns, stand up again. The Stoic doesn't expect flawlessness. He expects effort, and that effort, repeated quietly day after day, is what makes a life worth living. You now hold a blueprint, not just for mornings, but for resilience. Every choice you make upon waking is either a drift into chaos or a declaration of control. Make it count. Own the hour. Own the day. Not with force, but with philosophy. Not with pride, but with presence. Because one day, maybe soon, you will face something truly difficult. A loss, a betrayal, a fear. And when that moment comes, you will not rise to it. You will fall back to your training. What you do every morning is not just preparation for routine, it's preparation for crisis. That's what these 10 habits are for. And now I'll leave you with this final thought. Life does not wait. It doesn't pause for your motivation. It doesn't care about your mood. It arrives, demands, moves, and you must be ready, not with reaction, but with principle, not with panic, but with presence. So tomorrow when you wake up, don't scroll, don't rush, don't run from the day. Stand, breathe, begin. You know what to do.